Life comes with a lot of decisions, and it can be hard to know the right path sometimes. A therapist can help you map out what you really want, so you trust yourself to make great choices and feel excited about the future. BetterHelp offers convenient professional online therapy on your schedule, however you want it, by phone, chat, or video call. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/positive. When life gets crazy busy, and when doesn't it? Walmart helps you keep it all together, now with a little help from Instacart. If you need your groceries now-ish, but your options for going to Walmart are later-ish or never-ish, you can get everything you need delivered through Instacart right to your door in as fast as an hour. Skip the shop and savor more of your crazy busy life with Walmart and Instacart. Visit instacart.com to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply.
This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Jacob Albrock, Tommy Castor, alongside you here on this Monday edition. We get news from Chiefs camp. We didn't want to see Chris Jones not there. Once more than I think the general public hypothesized. We're pondering what that means. We've got other NFL news. The Aftershocks advance to play tomorrow night. Much more on that coming tomorrow. Kevin wins our HTO giveaway. We'll have a WinSurge giveaway coming up this hour. Thanks for listening to us on KFH. You can call in. The IHOP hotline is always open at 869-1240 is that number to call. You can do that anytime, or you can leave us your comments on our video stream, which you'll find on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, if that's still what it's being called. I'm not sure. Another confusing moment in social media for me. But let's jump to that IHOP hotline for some Chris Jones talk. Mike on the line. Mike, what's up?
Hey, guys. Hey, it's cool to be on the air. If I were Chris Jones, I'd be more concerned about staying on an excellent Chiefs team so that way I could win more Super Bowl rings. Because considering how much money Jones already makes, how much money does one person need?
Yeah, you know, Mike, that's he has not made just gobs yet. If you look at his salary history, and this is a part of the reason why I'm not surprised that he wants this, 2022, Tommy, was the first time he's been paid. Like, you know, other than that, he just hasn't, you know, he hasn't made a ton of money in the league. His base salary in 2020 was $14 million, which was the first time he made anything. And then in 2021, they kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit. He restructured for him, got paid last year, and would get paid this year at 22. But he has not been on some, you know, massive contract yet. He's made $67 million thus far in his career, which is the guaranteed money essentially that Quinnen Williams just signed for. And you got to think of it in relative terms. I mean, that's the thing. It's what is it among his peers? Yeah, we might think that number and think, oh my God, we'd never, you know, and you get probably, I think most guys get about half of that, and we appreciate the call, Mike. You get about half after taxes and you pay your agents and all that, maybe even a little less than half. But, you know, it's all relative, right? Like, what's the guy next to you getting paid? I mean, we would all, and look, there are situations where guys have taken pay cuts. Quarterbacks do it, but quarterbacks get paid a ton. And quarterbacks know that the situation matters probably more than any other position. But if you're doing a job and you think you're doing it better than the person next to you and they're being paid far more than you are, like, yeah, you know what? Like, I kind of maybe think that I need to be getting paid a little more than that. And the other thing about athletes that you got to remember, their earnings window in reality is less than 10 years, right? That's the ability you have to, you know, you've worked your entire life to develop this skill set, and you can capitalize on that if you're lucky, right, for about, 8 years probably. And it's even less than that. So, you know, I don't I don't ever fault guys for doing this. Now, Chris Jones is in a little bit of a different situation here. He's looking for about $10 million more than what he would make this year, maybe even a little less than that. I think there's a number in the middle that you can reach. I don't think that's the hard part. I think the hard part is length of time, and did the Chiefs plan for this appropriately? Did they plan for it? I don't know. I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. Surely this did not blindside them. Because what benefit would Chris Jones have to do it that way, right? I mean, surely they've been telling him what they were looking for the whole time.
Yeah, here's the other thing that I think is very important to keep in mind. I am done, and I've been done for a while, giving players this benefit of the doubt that they would rather take less money to stay on a winning team and win Super Bowls. Like, I think that is a fallacy to think about. The exception to the rule, it's guys like Patrick Mahomes, but more often than not, and I think that it's very important that, everybody start realizing players are going to go where they can make the most money. They are wanting to earn as much as they can and maximize
of the time. Yeah.
But I would say even more than that. I mean, it is the exception to the rule big time that a player is willing to take less money to go and potentially play for a winning team or play for a certain quarterback, play for a certain head coach.
Well,
they want to earn money. They want to earn money.
I know, it's
and
hard
I think
for
that's got to be where everybody starts, as opposed to starting from a position of, oh, for sure he's going to want to take less money to continue to play for the organization. Right. Like, that's a recipe for being supremely disappointed regardless of the player. The bottom line is they want to make what they feel like they deserve. That's the bottom line. And if there's an exception to that, great, and we'll celebrate that. But more often than not, they just want to get paid.
But the Chiefs' two most high-profile players do that. And I think that's what makes it sometimes hard for Chiefs fans. Like, why would you ever want to leave this, right? The Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce they don't make as much as they should. They're willing to do it, and that's fine. Good for those two guys. They both also are very marketable off the field and have other ways to earn, not just now, but down the road. But the other part of this where there's pressure is the players have a union to consider. And Patrick Mahomes toes this line well, right? Because Patrick Mahomes, like, I believe based on, what we see from him, he doesn't care that he's the highest paid but he knows that there's a responsibility he feels to his peers when you're in a union like that to make as much as you can so that they can make as much as they can. And so there's that pressure too. Like, Chris Jones may want to say, yeah, I'd be fine with whatever, but what about the 5 next defensive tackles that come in after him, right? There's that pressure too. And those guys feel that pressure. That's a part of the, you gotta think about that when you think about these unions. Do you do something that's going to make all of your peers hate you? And do you set their potential careers back in doing it, on that level too? That's definitely a big piece of this. And we see guys talk about it. Like, I got to make sure. Mahomes does it really well. He addresses that issue well. I also have to make sure that the guys coming after me, behind me, have the opportunity to do their best too. So it's a really complicated thing. And let's not pretend like these poor owners either, right? The Dan Snyder, who did, by all accounts, one of the worst jobs ever in the history of sports ownership, just made $6 billion in a sale of the Commanders. Okay, so if you're going to hold it against the players for wanting that money, hold it against the other side too, because they're making far 100%, more. 100%. Right? 100%. Like, it's not even.
And that's, that whole argument, and I'm not trying to single out Mike here. I've heard this from multiple people, but this argument of how much money could one person need? Okay, it's not about that. It's about being paid relative to the skill set that you have. And if you are the best in the world at what you do, or I guess even the second best in the world at what you do, keep in mind how exclusive of a club that is. Being at the highest level as a starting defensive lineman on a championship winning team with a skill set that basically shows the world that you can earn a certain amount of money, then you're going to want to make that money. Like, I honestly, I don't begrudge Chris Jones at all. And if there is, some kind of miscommunication between Jones's team and the Chiefs, PR and front office and all of that, and that's why we've got kind of this war of words going on right now, I honestly don't really put that on the shoulders of Chris Jones. The guy wants to get paid. He is in the prime to get he's got one more big contract probably in him. I've got no problem with him wanting to get that money.
No problem at all, and I also don't have a problem with the Chiefs trying to figure out what's best for the Chiefs either. They've got to take care of their other players too in their franchise and win as many games as they can win. I'm trying to go back and look at defensive tackles and when have they began to. So we don't know yet with Aaron Donald because he was hurt last year. He's only 2 years older than Jones. Bryant Young jumped to mind. He certainly slowed. Just looking at the numbers after he turned 28, quite frankly. So it is a tough scenario. I think the length becomes the real sticking point here on this deal. I think they can find the money. I think they can figure out a way to massage the money because they do still have the benefit of a Patrick Mahomes restructure to help them do that. It's how long is it going to happen? That's what gets really complicated to me. We talking 3 years? We talking 4 years? I don't know if I'm going 4 if I'm the Chiefs. That's a long time. If it's 3, you would at 30 or 29?
Yeah, I would. We're not talking about Chris Jones being 37 at the end of this contract. We're talking about him being 33, and I think that he can still be an impactful defensive lineman at a high level at the age of 33. Do you really think that his skill set will decline that significantly from 29 to 33, where we look back on that 4th year and say, man, the Chiefs shouldn't have given him a 4-year contract? Because I think the chances of that happening, barring some kind of injury, I think that is pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really, really hard. I don't have a good example. J.J. Watt, some of the best players we've seen over the last few years definitely declined at a certain age. It's not one of those areas, I think, where guys age well. It's just hard because I don't have, in front of me right now, I don't have a good list. So I can't say one way or the other what that age, we sort of know when it is for running backs now, right? We sort of know where it is for wide receivers historically. We know that quarterbacks have the ability to play the longest, right? And kickers and punters. Offensive linemen do okay. But
wouldn't you say that outside of, I don't know, quarterbacks and kickers and punters, the line, on both sides of the ball, that's probably the next
defensive end? Absolutely not.
Not defensive end, but interior linemen. You've got on both sides of the ball, there are plenty of examples of players playing into their late 30s at those positions. And the other thing too to keep in mind, the Chiefs and every NFL franchise, they are very good at figuring out ways to make contracts work long term. So let's say that Chris Jones is hung up on getting a 4th year on that contract. What would be the harm of the Chiefs going ahead and giving him that 4th year, knowing that after 3 years, then they can go and restructure it, or they can go and they can find a way. And I know that, you're kicking the can down the road. I know you're basically, mortgaging your future a little bit at that point, but I think that they can get creative in that 4th year to make it work long-term. If it were me, I'm not going to let a potential 4th year in the contract be the reason why I don't re-sign Chris Jones. I'm going to find a way to make that work.
But the reason that happens is because you have a plan for what you're going to do in that year. And this doesn't allow you to do that as well. John Randall stayed at a high level after the age of 30. He's the only one I've found so far. Geno Atkins is up there with these guys. He's not done yet. I'm going to keep looking at this.
But if you're going to make that argument, then I think you need to be advocating for them to not sign him at all, because he's 29 And if there's a decline that happens as soon as you turn 30, then what's the point in signing him at all? Let him walk entirely.
Cortez Kennedy goes down.
Don't sign him to a contract, and let him go find another team who's willing to pay him. And I don't think that's the right move. But if you're gonna, but I'm just saying, if you're going to get hung up on a fourth year and a decline between the ages of 32 and 33, at that point, I think we're splitting hairs a little bit.
It's not that it's splitting hairs. It's that you have to mitigate your risk in a big, massive contract like this. I'm just looking at Warren Sapp's final 4 years. He had one good year in there when he was in Oakland. I'm trying to find a history at the position to know, because there is risk in all of the years. So you're increasing your risk the more years you have. Now, sure, there's a chance Chris Jones plays great in all of those years. Absolutely, that's on the table. Dude's a physical specimen that takes care of himself, does all the right things, all of those things, right? I'm just trying to find, historically, how much risk really is there at that position. And it seems like there is a moderate amount of risk and length of time after the age of 29 or 30 for this position. Now, there have been outliers in the list. I'm literally taking Gil Brandt's top guys at the position and just trying to look at their careers. And, they're all able to play, so that's a good thing, right? They're at least able to be out there. I wish that the Chiefs could figure out a way to front-load the deal. That's what I would do, but I don't think that they can. Maybe they can turn a bunch into a bonus and do it that way. But in, a perfect world, you figure out a way to front-load this deal now, but teams almost never do that. Because if you front-load it, then now you have a situation with Willie Gay and L'Jarius Sneed and potentially Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith that you have to navigate. It's just complicated. My whole point to all of this isn't that they should or shouldn't sign him. At 4 years, I'd begin to really worry. 3 would be fine. But it's what do the Chiefs have planned for this money that they potentially now aren't going to have? That's why I think this could get more complicated than just, give Chris Jones what he wants. I'm sure they would love to do that. But they have a salary cap to maneuver the next few years. I don't know if they're able to, accurately project how much the cap will go up, because it certainly will. It's just not easy. We'd all hoped they'd be like, all right, Quinnen Williams signed, Chris Jones comes in right over the top of him, we can all move on and everything will be great. That's what we've been saying all summer, right? Just wait on the Quinnen Williams deal. But it's clearly more complicated than that.
It is. I think that it's very cut and dry and clear for what Chris Jones wants. And I think that Taylor, it is. And I think that he is going to ultimately get close to that. I don't think the Chiefs are going to pay him $30 million. But I also don't think that the Chiefs are going to be able to get away with paying him $22 million. So I think that there's going to be maneuvering on both sides. It might come down to the way it's structured. It might come down to what kind of cap space is freed up. It might come down to a number of years in the contract where both sides feel comfortable. There is absolutely a risk to sign Chris Jones to any contract, in the same way that there is a risk to sign any player to any contract at any age. In a physical sport like football, there is that risk. And I understand your point in wanting to mitigate risk, but you also can't mitigate risk to a point to where it's a detriment to your organization. And we have seen the absolute impact that Chris Jones has brought to that defense. And we also know the way that defense, and specifically that position, would perform, we think, without him on the roster. Knowing all of that and taking all of that into consideration, I'm going to reiterate what I said at the very beginning of the show. I don't have a significant concern that this is not going to get done. I think it will. I think that both sides are going to continue to talk. It sounds like, according to Andy Reid, that talks were very positive up until just the other day. So I think that you can get away from that and you can steer the ship back on to the positive directions. And again, I'll reiterate what I said. I think he will ultimately report to training camp.
I do too, because I think they'll ultimately sign him. Tommy?
So, we've got a number 1 deluxe meal. Is there anything else I can get you?
Yeah, I'd also like a good night's sleep. Maybe something like the I didn't struggle all night with my uncomfortable CPAP mask.
Sir, I think what you're looking for is Inspire. It's an implant that works inside your body to treat sleep apnea without a CPAP.
Come on! He sounds hangry. Inspire. Sleep apnea innovation. Inspire is not for everyone. Talk to your doctor to see if it's right for you. And review important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Did you know last year's first year in Chris Jones's career, he played every game?
Yeah, he was extremely durable last year. He played more, like I said, more snaps than any other player in the NFL.
That was the first time in his career that he played every game in a season. Before that, he'd missed 3, 4, 5, 9, and 5 games in those seasons. I want the Chiefs to sign Chris Jones. Don't misunderstand it. But it is not simple. Like, it's not an easy decision to make. Patrick Mahomes is an easy decision to make, right? Tyreek Hill was not an easy decision to make, although it was for the Chiefs. They said, see you later, pretty instantly. It's complicated. Chris Jones has not been a durable player. He was durable 1 year of his career last year. He's been hurt every other year of his career. And so, like, when you talk about a guy getting on the other side of 30, when you're going to pay him that kind of money, it is a concern. And if you have to do it, like, if something really bad happens, then it's even more of a concern because it keeps you from signing other players on the roster. And we can say on July 24th of 2023 that it's an easy decision, they'll figure it out. But on July 24th of 2025, if Chris Jones gets hurt and then it's not an easy decision because it maybe cost you Willie Gay or Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith or somebody that you have to think about down the road. That's why these things get complicated, and that's why I think this thing may go a long time so that both sides can figure out a way. Here's what we want to do, Chris Jones. We want to get you the guaranteed money. We want to get you the total money. We got to figure out a way to get it to you that doesn't keep us from doing this other stuff. That's why this might take a while.
Make no mistake about it, though. The Kansas City Chiefs want to win the Super Bowl this season, right? They want to win it every year. They want to have a dynasty, but the most immediate goal is this year.
I don't believe that. They wouldn't have let Tyreek Hill go if they believed that. They wouldn't have let Tyreek Hill go if they believed that.
You don't think that they opened training camp with the most immediate goal to win a championship this year? And to go back to back?
Did they not do that when they traded Tyreek Hill?
They absolutely did. But my point is that you don't plan. I don't think that you should plan for what's, basically cutting off your nose to spite your face and saying, all right, we're going to just not have Chris Jones because we're going to plan for 3 or 4 years down the line. Like, the goal right now is to win another Super Bowl this season. So with whatever happens with Willie Gay, and with Trip McDuffie and the offensive line, like, those things will all play out. Those things, they'll cross that bridge when they get to them. Like that, I don't think that needs to be the primary concern right now. It's how do we keep our defense intact this season to go out and repeat as champions.
I don't know how you can say they think that way when they traded Tyreek Hill, who would have given them a better chance to win the Super Bowl last year. There's no question he would have. He was one of the best players in football last year.
But that doesn't mean their goal changes. That doesn't mean they trade away Tyreek Hill.
I know their goal doesn't change.
Hey,
we're not. If they decide to sign Chris Jones, that doesn't mean they don't want to win the Super Bowl this year.
But that gives you the best chance possible to do that.
I think Tyreek Hill gave him the best chance possible 2 years ago.
Those are two different situations, two different positions on different sides of the ball. I don't think you can equate Tyreek Hill to Chris Jones. I don't think that's fair to Chris Jones. Like, they're two completely different players doing completely different things. You have a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes who throws the ball to Travis Kelce, number 1, and then you've got other receivers that are able to step up. I'm not saying that Tyreek Hill wasn't great, because he was, but Chris Jones is the quarterback of the defense. He is the anchor of the defense. He's the most important player on that side of the ball. You cannot equate him to Tyreek Hill and the way that situation played out.
I can, because it was similar money. Patrick Mahomes was like Tom Brady in New England. There aren't very many teams in football that don't have to look at just this year, but the Chiefs are one of the teams that don't have to just look at this year. They are afforded through Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid the ability to look big picture. I mean, They're an organization that showed us that time and time and time again. If they were only worried about winning the Super Bowl that year, they wouldn't have drafted Patrick Mahomes when they had Alex Smith making Pro Bowls.
They're worried about winning the Super Bowl every year, but the most immediate concern is this one. It's not 3 or 4 years down the line when Willie Gay and Trent McDuffie's deals come up, or Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith's deals come up. It's right now. It's this season. It's repeating and going back to back. So they can want to plan for it every year, but the most immediate concern is putting the best roster on the field this season to repeat as champions.
But that exact same scenario existed last year. And with Tyrann Mathieu, with Tyreek Hill, with all
those players are not Chris Jones. Those players are not Chris Jones.
I think you're not giving the Chiefs credit enough for being as cutthroat as they have a history of being. It's not about being cutthroat.
It's not about being cutthroat. It's about making the best decision for your franchise, and the best decision is to sign Chris Jones to an extension. Bottom line.
There has to be a limit to what you're willing to do. There has to be. Why not just pay him more than Aaron Donald then?
But that's not what he's requesting. He's not asking to be the highest paid.
I mean, it's a $1 million difference. It's a $1 million difference. We don't know what he's requesting, other than what's been reported, which is 30. But guess what was reported before, right then in that report? That he wanted just a little more than Quinnen Williams, and that was wrong, clearly, according to now the new reporting.
This is going to get done. It's going to get done.
I think it will too. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think it will get done too. But I've said forever, there's something else here that's making this take longer than we thought it would, and here it is. And it may take even longer because they have to reshuffle everything now if they're going to pay him that much. If they thought they were going to have to pay him, 24 or 25. 869-1240, we'll continue the conversation. You can chime in on the IHOP hotline. 869-1240 is that number to call. We'll come back. Some injuries at training camp today. Ugh, I hate training camp. Every year this happens. We get to training camp, and I'm like, God, I hate training camp because guys get hurt. We'll talk about that, more on Chris Jones as we return on Sports Daily.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's give away some ticket vouchers for the Wichita Wind Surge here right off the top. We'll give you a 4-pack of those vouchers to see tickets that you can exchange for tickets to see a Wind Surge game of your choice, courtesy of Sports Daily and KFH. We'll give those to the first caller on the IHOP hotline. 869-1240 is that number to call. Welcome back into Sports Daily. Jacob Albrock, Tommy Castor here with you. Jad will get us a winner there on those Wind Surge vouchers. We've been talking a lot about Chris Jones not reporting to training camp. There's a lot of players right now not reporting to training camp. Most of them happen to be at the running back position. Josh Jacobs spotted on a flight out of Vegas. Saquon Barkley not reporting and had some choice words for his options that are on the table. We know the running backs met over the weekend to talk about or probably just vent about the situation. Some injuries already today. We saw Nyheim Hines for the Bills go down what looks like for the season. That is a big blow to the Bills.
Did you hear about what happened to him? Did you read what the situation with him?
No, I just saw the injury was season ending.
So he was apparently sitting stationary on a jet ski, I think on a lake, and another jet ski rammed into him. And they said that he had serious but non-life-threatening injuries that would require surgery, and he'll miss the entire year. Just kind of a freak thing for Nyheim Hines.
And he was a big part of what they were trying to do there this year, too. That was a big weapon for them. So that sucks. That sucks. That's not even a training camp injury. No. Then there's a training camp injury today. C.J. Gardner-Johnson for the Lions, right leg injury. By all accounts, it looked really bad. His teammates were consoling him. So, look, it's just that time of year where you just sort of hold your breath, and then we get into training camp, and you hold your breath and wonder and hope that you don't have something crazy happen. as it always does. So we enter that portion of the football season. Like, it's one thing during the season when guys miss, because they do all the time, right? But when it's now, I feel like it stings more when it comes before the season ever gets started, because you have all this buzz. We're like, all right, we're so excited about this guy, and oh, good, we never got to see him play at all. We're great. There goes the season, right? Like, I don't know that Nyheim Hines is a there goes the season moment for the Bills, but that's tough.
Right. As we're talking about injuries, I think it is notable. Kadarius Toney went down with an injury over the weekend. The reports were that he tweaked his knee, and so it sounds like it's not serious, but
he was
that always gives you a little. It gives you a little bit of pause, knowing his injury history, that he wasn't able to complete a practice this weekend.
I mean, I feel like there's like a 0% chance that Kadarius Toney makes it through a full season. Like, not even a slight possibility that he makes it through a full season. It's what can you get out of Kadarius Toney that allows you to be the best version of yourself. Sky Moore feels so critical to me this year because Kadarius Toney's I love Kadarius Toney as a player, but guy can't stay on the field for whatever reason. So these other guys around him are going to have to step up pretty quickly. And I think Toney just becomes maybe what do you pencil him in for? I mean, what's reasonable? 12 games, 13 games?
Yeah, I was going to say 10. If you can get a minimum of 10 games out of him, playing a little bit more than half the games this year, I mean, I guess that's good. Not ideal, but I guess that's good. I really hope that we see Sky Moore take a significant step forward this year. I think he will. But I really want to see that because, man, the Chiefs have placed their hopes and dreams in that wide receiver room basically on his shoulders. Because I think they know that you're not probably going to get an entire year out of Kadarius Toney. And the free agent signings and the draft picks are good, but they're not wide receiver one type material. They didn't get DeAndre Hopkins. They're really, I think, banking on Sky Moore being the guy. And we saw flashes of it towards the end of last year, but I really hope that he's able to take that step forward.
He was not at practice today, Kadarius Toney. Sky Moore, he's the guy. He's the guy. There's video out from the first day of camp of Mahomes hitting Rashee Rice on a little touchdown. He could be. That's the thing about rookie receivers now. We used to have to wait 2 or 3 years before receivers really blew up. Receivers can be great in year one anymore, the way the game's played. So maybe Rashee Rice is an impact guy too. I do think the Chiefs are baking in Toney missing games. I do. I think that they've clearly been planning for that in the way that they've constructed things. It's actually one of the places you feel pretty good about depth, and it might be the only place you feel good about the depth on the offense is wide receiver. And Kadarius Toney, just like he did last year, just sort of feels like this icing on the cake, right? Like, it's going to be great if we have him. Man, he's going to be a weapon, but we probably aren't going to have him all the time, so we better have, we better be ready for that reality too. It is, it's salivating what he could do if he played every game in a season in this offense based on what we've seen out of him when he is on the field in his NFL career. It just almost seems impossible, though, that that's going to happen. And they really do. I agree with Sky Moore. I loved him last year. I think that, the returning punts got in his head a little bit. I do also think, though, Patrick Mahomes seems like he trusted him a little bit. He did keep going to him. Patrick Mahomes is good at doing that with anybody. Like, he can come right back at you. We'll see.
I don't know if you saw this. I saw a report from training camp over the weekend of the list of players that were practicing receiving punts, and Sky Moore was one of them. And I'm like, no, why are we doing this? And I know that they've got a couple of other players that they want to work in to be the primary punt returner. I think Kadarius Toney, obviously, we saw him in the Super Bowl. If he's healthy, he's got to be the guy. And I know that they're trying to give Sky Moore extra reps. I just want that experiment to be done. I let him focus on being the best wide receiver possible. I do not need to see him back there muffing punts, messing with his confidence. Like, that is not something that I'm interested in watching this season.
So Jesse Newell on yesterday was just sort of charting the first team wide receivers, and you don't get to stay for the whole time. But Sky Moore, plenty of opportunities, said to be the top guy. Richie James had a great practice.
Yeah.
And that Justin Ross was very involved. Kadarius Toney, they didn't see much of. I do think I think they're deep there, right? Like I think that of all the positions on the field for this team, that is one of the spots where they feel kind of deep, right?
Yeah, they're deep. I don't disagree with you. They're deep, but I think they're unproven for the most part.
Oh,
and
sure.
So that's going to be the major question. Like, not about the amount of depth, but just about what kind of production can we get from them.
Well, I listen. I applaud Juju Smith-Schuster for what he did for the team last year. Very replaceable, right? He was consistent. He was on there. He was out there for them. Marquez Valdes-Scantlin's still on the team. It didn't change really that much. The room didn't, outside of Juju being gone. And I just think there's
gone.
A real high okay. There's two.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I know, you're right. You're right. Yep. I think there's a very high probability that even these unproven guys can have replacement value over those two guys. I do. That's not a knock on either one of those guys. They were very critical to the Chiefs winning a Super Bowl. I just think they've done a good job with enough people there that it's like, okay, we can replace that production. As long as Travis Kelce's there, they'll be okay. And Kadarius Toney, again, icing on the cake. Like, I don't know what to expect out of him other than he's as dynamic a player at the position as there is, but he's never out there. And that's half the battle in the NFL. We're all watching the quarterback series. Once you start the season, like, half the battle of the NFL season is staying on the field.
Yeah, they don't win the Super Bowl against the Eagles without Kadarius Toney on the field. That touchdown catch and the punt return to seal the deal, they don't win a championship without him. And we, like I said, we saw flashes of the brilliance and the player that he could be. The reason why he was such a high draft pick for the Giants when he came out of college, there's a reason for all of that. We've seen flashes of it, but again, the knock has always been he's injury prone. Can he stay on the field? And it wasn't encouraging, I guess would be the word, to know that he already has an injury in training camp. Hopefully it's not severe. Hopefully we're able to see him back out there, but he's kind of like, in my opinion, sort of like Isaiah Pacheco, where it's like, shut him down. We know the kind of guy he can be. We don't need to see him do a whole lot more in training camp or preseason to know the kind of receiver that he is. Keep him healthy, get him ready so they can use him for as many regular season games as possible.
I wouldn't play Isaiah Pacheco one snap in the preseason.
I wouldn't play Kadarius Toney one snap in the preseason either.
Well, I kind of need to see Toney.
Like, what's the benefit?
Because
you already know what he can do.
Well, we know what he can do, but we have to know what I think you sort of have to know what the offense is with him and without him, right? Like, because you have to plan for both, right? Like, where formationally, structurally, like, how does it look with him and without him? Honestly, I would have him returning punts in the season because I think he's an impact player there, and I think his injury risk is so high anyway. I think that's what I think. I reserve the right to change my mind on that, but I think that's a decent spot for him. But if he doesn't play because they're careful with him, I'm okay with it. But I don't know that I feel the same way I do about Pacheco, where it's like, do not play him. There's no value in playing him. I do think there's some value into mixing Toney in because I think you've got 3 or 4 guys that are going to move around to 3 or 4 different spots and really mix it up there. And I guess you could just put somebody in his place and still do that, maybe. I don't know. But we just need to see him on the field. He's been off the field for more than injuries, too, right? Like, he has some other things that have creeped up off the field that, according to some reporting, was a problem with the Giants. He's a weird dude. You gotta keep him happy. You gotta keep him on the field. However you do it, I agree with you. Whatever it takes. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll come back. Sports Daily continuing on here on this Monday edition. We've got the Aftershocks coming up tomorrow night. Man, I just this dadgum Nyheim Hines thing. That sucks.
Pretty bad.
Amari Cooper left practice today, too, by the way.
Hey, by the way, big anniversary today. I know I texted you about it. I'm sure we can talk about it after the break because it's one of the most iconic moments in baseball history.
Yeah, that's a good tease. We'll hit that next. It is maybe the most iconic moment in the history of the Kansas City Royals. That's next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back into Sports Daily, everybody. It's all Brockton Caster. All right, Tommy. Most iconic moment in Royals franchise history, the Pine Tar incident?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's number one. I was thinking about it during the break, like other iconic moments. I mean, the World Series wins are up there for sure.
I think you have to put those up there now.
Yeah. Both 85 and 2015. The throw from Bo Jackson, that one play where, and maybe when he ran up the wall, basically anything with Bo Jackson, breaking the bat over his leg, throwing the guy out at, I think it was third base. Like, those are all up there. That wild card game against Oakland in 2014, that's got to be up there. But the Pine Tar incident with George Brett, it's got to be number one.
It's strange that I do think you can have a discussion on what's more iconic, winning the World Series there in 2015 or that. But it's not just for the Royals. It's across baseball, right? The Pine Tar thing is like an iconic moment. If you took like a top moments in the history of baseball of like interesting thing that's happened, that's one of them. And George Brett is, he is Mr. Royal, right? And when I think about that moment in George Brett, that's why I always am like, I will be just fine if the Royals never trade Salvador Perez, because I think he can join George Brett as the most iconic players in franchise history. Because I think George Brett still is that, even now after that last generation in the back-to-back World Series and everything else. I think George Brett's still the most iconic Royal of all time, and I don't think even Salvador Perez or Zach Greinke or anybody else that might go into the Hall of Fame, like those guys aren't going to take that title from him. And for him, that's the most iconic moment of his career. Love it or hate it, it just is.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations, too, that the entire thing, just the drama around it, you've got Billy Martin making a scene. He's handing the bat to the umpires. The umpires are examining it like they're scientists in a laboratory. And then just the emphatic out call, and here comes Brett. And what I love about it is that, that's back in the day where it's not like there was railing on the dugout. So he was just out of his seat up the stairs and there in seconds before anybody could grab him. Incredible. If you follow the Royals on Twitter, I guess, it's still called Twitter for now. If you follow them on Twitter, they released like a remastered audio version of that this morning. You can go watch it for the 40th anniversary where, some of those words are, obviously they're choice words, and it's pretty crystal clear audio. It's pretty good quality for 40 years ago.
It's awesome. It is a fun moment. And, it's one like from an outsider's perspective growing up. Like I didn't know a lot about the Royals. They weren't ever very good. But, yeah, the display of athleticism for him to get up and in there that fast is good. That's good stuff. And it will always be celebrated, the Pine Tar game. Like everybody if you said the Pine Tar game, everybody that's the baseball fan will tell you what it is.
So I watched I think it was a pregame interview over the weekend. Of course, the Royals are in New York to play the Yankees. We're in New York this weekend. And so it was real fitting with the anniversary and all of that. And the broadcasters for the Royals did an interview with Dan Hurley, of all people, the head coach of UConn basketball, who grew up in the New York, New Jersey area and was a kid when the Pine Tar incident happened. And he said on the broadcast that he became a Royals fan and George Brett was his favorite player because of the Pine Tar incident. It wasn't a Yankees player. He wasn't a fan of the Yankees, but because of the Pine Tar incident, he became a Royals fan. And I thought that was pretty cool.
It is cool. It is cool. And, when you're a Hall of Famer and one of the greatest players that ever played, but people know who you are because of that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, and I'm sure George Brett's answered that question. But it's interesting. It is very, very interesting. But that is 40 years ago today, the Pine Tar incident. So historians out there, enjoy that. Enjoy that. I'm going to have to go look up that remastered audio version. I haven't seen that yet. So we'll do that. All right. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. We're going to come back. We're going to tell you what's on tap today next on Sports Daily.